So I'm going to try to get us live on YouTube, but I can't sign in at the moment. So please bear with me for 1 minute. All right, apologies. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make the YouTube happen right now, but we're recording on Zoom, so we can still go forward if necessary, I think. Okay, I think we can go ahead and move forward. And if we can manage to get signed into YouTube, and then we'll start whenever that happens. So go ahead, Grant.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Kelly. I'll go ahead and call the January 25th, 2022 meeting of the Oregon City Historic Review Board to order. First, we will ask if there are any public comments not related to items on the agenda this evening. All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the public hearing portion of the agenda. 3 public hearings on land use applications are scheduled tonight. Our role is to conduct the public hearing and to make decisions about the matter before us. In making those decisions, we must apply the applicable codes and laws and cannot vary from or change those laws or codes. Members of the Historic Review Board are to be unbiased. Before the start of each hearing, I will ask the Historic Review Board members whether they have any potential conflicts such as family, financial, or business relationships with any of the applicants or with regard to the land in question. I will also ask whether any of the Historic Review Board members have discussed the application in question with any of the parties or have independent knowledge of relevant facts, such as from a visit to the site in question. Any member of the audience may question any Historic Review Board member about their disclosures. A staff report has been prepared for each application and has been made available to the public 7 days before the first public hearing. The staff report identifies the approval criteria that apply to each applicant's proposal. Staff has analyzed the criteria which are contained in the staff report. The quasi-judicial hearing procedure that the Historic Review Board will follow is set out in state law and the Oregon City Municipal Code. The hearing procedure steps are shown on the Historic Review Board website. Public testimony will be called on in the order it was requested in advance of the meeting. If you have not emailed city staff at planning@orcity.org to request to speak and would like to testify, please raise your virtual or physical hand when I ask if there are others in the audience who would like to participate. For the public record, please begin all testimony stating your name and city of residence. If you would like to receive a copy of the notice of decision, please state your mailing address or email address. Testimony and evidence should be directed toward the applicable approval criteria. If you believe other criteria apply in addition to those addressed in the staff report, identify and discuss those criteria and explain how and why you believe they apply to the application under consideration. Any person may submit written material while the public record is open on each application. Any written materials received by the city staff during the time period in which the record is open will be placed in the record. Written materials submitted during the public hearing must be presented to the city staff in order to become part of the record. If a person intends for PowerPoint presentations, reports, pictures, or other exhibits used in their oral testimony to be placed in the record, copies must be submitted to the city staff while the record is still open. If they're not given to staff, they will not be included. Any person wishing a continuance to present additional evidence and testimony or to keep the record open to respond to new evidence must make that request before the public testimony portion of the hearing is closed. If the Historic Review Board makes a decision with which you disagree, any issue that you may wish to appeal must have been raised on the record for the consideration of the City Commission or the Land Use Board of Appeals or both. Without raising the issue on the record with sufficient detail and accompanied by statements or evidence that the city and all parties can respond to, the issue will be deemed not appealable to the City Commission or State Land Use Board of Appeals. In addition, the failure of an applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval with sufficient detail to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Now, we'll open the record for Oregon City File GLUA 2161, HR 2124, Historic Review for New Construction at 724 Polk Street, site of the Clark S. Fuge residence, a historic landmark site. I'll now ask each Historic Review Board member whether they have had any ex parte contacts, have any conflicts of interest, bias, or any other statement to declare, and whether they visited the site. And if they visit the site, if they have any material information that they've noted. Board Member Stobie.
I have visited the site. I do not have any conflicts of interest or ex parte contact, and when visiting the site, did not find any material information to add.
Thank you. Board Member Egger.
I've driven by the site. I have no conflicts of interest and no ex parte contact.
Thank you. Board Member Ferry.
I visited the site. I have no conflicts of interest and I have no ex parte contact.
Thank you. Board Member Belknap.
I visited the site. I have no conflicts and had no ex parte contact.
Let me know if you need anything.
Okay. And I've also visited the site and have had no ex parte contacts and have no bias or conflicts of interest. Does anyone in the audience wish to question historic review board members about these disclosures? Okay. Hearing none, we'll now turn it back over to staff for the planning report.
Thank you, Chair Blythe. I am going to share my screen here. Okay, can everyone see that? Okay, thanks. This is a continuance from November. This application came in with two pieces to it. One was demolition of a garage and the new construction of for a replacement building there. The demolition of the garage was approved by the board in November. So this report and this decision will be only for the new construction. So this is at 724 Polk Street. It is a historic landmark outside of the district. Single family dwelling with the garage you can see there that was approved for demolition. The home was built in 1907. It's a vernacular style. So the applicant, the board continued the hearing last 2 months ago in order to get more information from the applicant on how the new structure would be connected to the existing house. So there is at the back of the house, there is a point where the two buildings do touch, and the board wanted some more information and detail on how that is connected and what it would look like. So the applicant provided some photos and some additional drawings and made a couple of modifications to the plans as well. So you can see here that in the new drawing, you can see the, let me switch here, the connection between the two buildings. And this structure that does touch the new proposed building is not part of the original volume of the historic home. It is an addition that was added later, sometime after it was built, but before the historic, most likely before any historic overlay was applied to the site. I don't think we have an exact year on when that addition was made. Sometimes additions can gain significance on their own. I don't know. I don't think that the applicant or the board has discussed this addition being having a lot of historic significance. It's compatible with the home, but it on its own doesn't have historic significance. So I'll show the next drawing. So you can see here in the revised drawing the applicant provided this kind of shape here is the structure, portion of the structure that is connected to the existing garage and would be also kind of connected to the new building here. You can see the dormer on the new building is placed right above the roof line of that kind of open porch area. So that the window, it kind of sits above that roof. There's also, there are also some photos. So you can see this kind of pole coming down from the roof is shown in the photo right here. And because the height of the new structure would be taller than the existing garage. This pole here, this post, would not exist any longer. The beam would be directly kind of connected into the wall of the new structure here. And then that's what it looks like on the back. This is the back edge of the garage where they're connected. So it would again continue to be connected. The new structure would go higher up on this wall here because it's taller. And then there's the wing, or I guess projection, on the back of the new structure that is set in from the edge. So that projection here would not touch the house, but the front portion of the new structure would. Other changes that the applicant has made to the proposal are to eliminate the little balcony that was on the upper story on the front of the new structure. So instead of a door and a balcony, just a double, a paired window is proposed. And the applicant also clarified that the space on the upper floor is not an ADU. It is only going to be living space. And you can see in the floor plan that there's no kitchen included in the floor plan. And that doesn't really have any implications for the board's review. It's just a clarification the applicant wanted to make to avoid any confusion when it comes time for building permits. So the new construction criteria on landmark sites, the guidelines are different from new construction in the districts. So that all of those guidelines are discussed in the written staff report, and we talked about some of those last hearings. So I'm not going to rehash those unless there are specific questions. The general idea of the criteria is to evaluate the impact of the proposed construction on the designated structure. My recommendation, and I believe the board's conclusion at the last hearing, was that the impact is negligible and acceptable, except for these little details that the board wanted on how those two buildings would be connected. So I've made one change to the conditions of approval based on the elimination of the balcony. And that is to confirm that the board accepts the revision to eliminate the front balcony, and that the window proportions and the style of that window that's going to replace that door and balcony should match the window on the front of the house. And I'll go to a photo. So there's a paired window here. I think that the applicant's drawing, and apologies, I'm going to kind of scroll back up through so you can see the front facade. The window, it doesn't have really any space here in between, kind of like the window on the front of the house does. So if the board wants to make any, has any suggestions or desires when it comes to the details of that window, please speak up. But I think that as it is, as long as the proportions of these two windows are kind of the same proportions and ratios as the windows on the front of the house, then it would meet that condition of approval. So with that, I will stop and answer any questions that you have.
No questions from me. Any questions from other board members?
Yes.
None for me.
Go ahead, Paul.
What is the pitch of the roof of the house, and what is the pitch of the roof of the garage or this new dwelling addition?
So the roof pitch is 812. And the new structure would have the same roof pitch as the house.
Okay. And we're assuming that the windows are, we should be more than assuming, but that there are double hung windows in design so as to emulate what's the house has.
Correct.
So the condition of approval, so the applicant didn't include a lot of details on the windows proposed, and so there's a condition of approval right now that's written in that says that the windows shall meet HRB policy. Now, that doesn't necessarily require double hung windows. It would require a 1/1 window that could be a single hung. And I believe, you know, the window on the side that's proposed, a small window would not necessarily be a 1/, or you know, a double hung. So right now, the condition allows some leeway because windows that meet HRB policies are, you know, there's some flexibility there. If the board wants all the windows to be a certain type, you would have to specify that in the conditions.
In this case, it would be, because we're sitting, putting this right next door to a historic structure with historic, in this case, double hung windows, it would be, I believe it would be appropriate, and particularly just for the front windows, is where the ones that are viewable from the street, that they have a double hung design for appearance purposes.
Very good. Any other questions for staff before we move into the applicant's testimony?
I don't have any questions.
Okay, in that case, we'll move into the public testimony. Just as a reminder of process, we'll have up to 15 minutes for the applicant, although you, of course, don't need to use all of that time. Up to 5 minutes for representatives of recognized neighborhood associations, government agencies, or other incorporated public interest organizations. Up to 3 minutes for individuals, and then up to 5 minutes for the applicant to rebut any of the other public testimony. So we'll go ahead and invite the applicant to explain your application. You can state your name and place of residence, please.
Hello, I'm Randy Bell, and residence is 724 Polk Street, Oregon City, Oregon, the property in question here. And like Kelly said, we're back for revisions from our meeting in November. And a few changes that we made is we did change the windows, and our intent is to use wood double hung windows that will match exactly what the rest of the house is. So that'll be taken care of. So we have included in drawings, there was some question about how the house was going to be close to the garage and that, so we include some drawings on that, and happy to answer any questions about that. But basically the footprint of the new building is going to be exactly the same as the old building. The addition that's on the house with that shed roof with the roof, and the addition on it was done about 25 years ago. And it did go through the historic review board at that time. Everything was all approved at that time and went through the process. Just, I guess the big thing is answering any questions that you have. And Brian Shaw is here. He's the designer. And so he can answer the more technical questions, I guess, as to what you need for us to be able to proceed.
Okay, very good. Thank you. One question I did have is the new drawings that were in the report didn't have a lot of detail on the trim. Would the trim profile on the windows match the trim profile that's on the historic structure?
Yeah, the trim will match exactly, and the siding, everything will match exactly what the house is.
That was my only question. Any other board members have questions for the applicant?
I don't have any questions.
That was my same question, Grant, so thank you.
Not hearing any others, we'll see if there's any other public comments on this application. Okay, hearing none, I assume you don't need to rebut any testimony there since there was none. I think we can go ahead and close the public record for testimony and move into board deliberations. We'll go around the board here for any comments. Board member Stobie.
Well, I'll just say I don't have a problem adding Paul's clarification or being specific with the window, but I'll say I know Brian Shaw is the, if I remember right, Brian helped create the Historic Review Board way back in the day and is a champion of historic preservation. So I fully trust that this house will be to the T where it needs to be. But I would have no problem voting for Paul's recommendation.
Okay. So that would modify the first condition of approval just to specify the double hung windows. Board member Egger, any comments?
I want to thank them for making the recommendation of doing the windows that way, that having wood windows and having them emulate the existing windows is terrific. But the only thing that I have some concern with has been how it attaches, and the level of importance on that is not great enough for me to make it a sticking point. So I would just because it is a historic structure, I would have rather had a separation. But I guess it's, I'll accept what's there what's being recommended.
Okay, thank you. Board member Ferry.
I think, thank you so much for including more details. It was really helpful to see exactly how those two buildings meet up and where the dormer projection comes out over the roof line. That's great. I think it looks great. I don't have any problem with the buildings touching. I actually think it creates a really nice envelope for the entryway that you have between the two structures. Yeah, I don't have any problems voting for approval.
Board member Belknap.
I don't have any reservations with this design. I think it does a nice job of complementing the existing structure. Isn't overwhelming. I think it's nicely proportioned, nicely designed. I love hearing that the finishes will be the same and it'll complement the design. And given the other questions that have been addressed, I don't have any reservations.
Okay, very good. And I would echo all the previous comments of the board. I appreciate you guys taking the time to put together the extra detail on how the structures connect and touch there. And I think it's a good design.
Thank you.
So in that case, I think we're ready for a motion then. Paul, you're muted there.
I don't have the nomenclature right in front of me of doing it, but I would move forward for a vote of approval with the conditions of approval, including the detail, matching detail, and of siding and windows. Thank you.
I'll second if that motion is good enough, Kelly.
So the motion would be to approve with conditions, revising condition number 1 to specify that the front windows should be wood double hung. Is that
Yes.
okay? Okay, well then, if there's a second for that, I got it. I have it straight here, so I'll
I'll
be able
second
to
that.
write the notice of decision. Sorry, did I hear a second?
Yes, it was Ray.
Okay, sorry. I'll call the vote. Board member Belknap.
Do I say aye or yes, or what are you asking for? Yes.
Either one. Board member Ferry.
Aye.
Sorry, I shouldn't have started with you, Jessica. That was not fair. Board member Edgar,
Aye.
board member Stovey,
Aye.
and Chair Blythe.
Aye. All right, motion carries and the application is approved. Good luck with your project.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you guys for all your work here and stuff. It's been going on for, I think we started this organization probably in the early 80s. That this
I think I
board is,
have pictures. Well, thank you,
Yes.
Brian. Sorry.
yeah.
I think I
So,
have pictures of you and Claire back in the early 80s.
yeah. And I appreciate your comments, Mr. Stobie. So, but you know, it's kind of hard because you're telling people, you know, just what to do with the property, but they don't realize that their neighbors have to do the same thing that you're doing. So it makes it for a nice cohesive city that way. So continue your efforts. I appreciate what you're doing. So thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll now open the record for Oregon City file number GLUA 2163 and HR 2126. Historic review for solar panel installation on street facing roof planes on a designated structure in the Mclaughlin Conservation District, the Otto and Luell Ericsson House. I'll again ask each historic review board member if they've had any ex parte contacts, conflicts of interest, bias, or any other statement to declare. And if they visit the site and have any notable information to share. Board member Stobie.
No conflicts of interest, no ex parte contact, and I have visited the site with no additional material findings to report.
Board member Egger.
I have driven by. I have no ex parte conflicts or with anything. So
Board member Ferry.
I have no conflicts of interest. I have no ex parte contacts. And I have visited the site and I haven't concluded anything different from visiting it.
Board member Belknap.
I have visited the site. I've had no contact or no conflicts.
Okay, thank you. And then finally, I've also driven by the site and have no ex parte contacts or conflicts to declare. Does anyone in the audience wish to question any of the historic review board members about these disclosures? Okay, hearing none, we'll turn it over to staff again for the planning report.
Thank you, Chair Blythe. I probably didn't introduce myself last name, Kelly Reed, planner. So I am going to share my screen again. So So this application is for alterations to designate Instructure Mclaughlin Conservation District 819 4th Street, the Ericsson house. So this lot is on the corner of 4th and Madison Street. And it's another one of those kind of southeast facing homes where we're seeing lots of solar panel applications come in lately. And this is a Queen Anne, a one-story Queen Anne structure built right around the turn of the century. It has a lot of ornate kind of ornamentation and detailing in the gables and on the front porch. And it's in great condition. You can tell that it's been cared for and kept in a good condition. So Hrb adopted a policy for solar technology in 2017, I believe. And so that policy allows certain solar panel projects to be approved at a staff level rather than going to the Hrb. This one includes panels that do meet the policy and some that don't. And so that's why it's here before you. So the policy requires that solar panels be on secondary facades when it's on a sloped roof location or on an accessory structure, that they need to project, the panels themselves can only project 5 inches or less from the roof surface and be installed flat so that they're not at an angle or altering the slope of the roof. That the panels should be the same color as the roof materials. And I think, I think that is generally similar colors work. Nothing can be exactly the same. Nobody's roof is totally black, but when it's dark gray, for example, that works for the staff approval. And then the mechanical equipment that's associated with the system shall be as unobtrusive as possible, so it doesn't destroy any historic features or architectural features. So like I said, some of the panels proposed on the roof of this house do meet the policy, and some don't. I want to also point out, as I discussed in the staff report, there are some conflicting policies in our comprehensive plan. We have policies to encourage preservation of historic structures, and then a policy to enable the use of alternative energy sources. And so, these are somewhat in conflict, maybe not really, but it's important to know that these are both policies in our comprehensive plan. So the proposed solar panels on this house are some on the front facade and then some on the side facade facing Madison Street. And so you can see in the photo here where I have the red arrow, that's the roof plane on the side of the house. There's a side entry here. That's the roof plane on the side where the panels do meet the Hrb policy. This roof is pretty dark. The panels are, on that secondary facade. And so those don't really need to be reviewed by you tonight. The ones that do are the ones on the front. And so here's I just kind of drew a little black shape here, trying to emulate where those panels would be placed on the roof. So that's looking from the corner, the street corner. If you get on the sidewalk and look at the house straight on 4th Avenue, 4th Street, these panels will not be visible. As you can see in the second photo, they're on this roof plane here. So they won't be visible from this view. But if you walk a little bit to the right, then, you'll start to see them. And because they are on the, above, like right above the entranceway and highly visible, that's considered a prominent roof plane. And so those can't be approved by that policy and they need to be reviewed by the board. I think the things to think about here are, the pitch of the roof. It's a steep pitch roof, which means those panels are very visible. The board has not approved any really right above an entranceway before on any other homes so far. I will mention, however, that, a lot of the detail and ornamentation on the house, that draws the eye. And none of that would be impacted by the installation. And so that might be a consideration that, there are a lot of other things going on in this house that will draw your eye other than these solar panels. The Secretary of Interior standards, which we cited previously, and we'll continue to use this guidance because we don't have any specific guidelines in our local guidelines. These standards generally have been applied to allow solar equipment that is minimally visible and or on secondary portions of structures or sites. So there's a couple of examples here. You can see these are, lower pitch roofs. So the panels aren't quite as visible from the street, or they're kind of set behind or set back a little bit behind some architectural features. And those, the guidance tells us that those don't have an adverse effect on the historic structure. I do want to point out a precedent from a few years ago. This was at 3rd and Madison, just around the block, I think, from the subject site, where there were some panels proposed here above the entryway, and there was an alternative proposed for a ground-mounted array in the yard. And then some panels on the side. And so the board approved these panels on the side and the ground mounted array, but did not approve the panels right above the front entrance on this home. Every case is different. So, there's not, the precedent doesn't necessarily have to dictate your decision tonight. But I do want to bring it up because it is somewhat similar of an example. The applicant, you probably noticed in your agenda packet that there was an analysis provided by the applicant. This came in the same day that I published the staff report. So my findings in the staff report don't reflect anything about the alternatives analysis, but they did provide it, and it shows the amount of power that would be provided by the current proposal, which is, the solar power would account for 32% of the total power consumed by the home, I think is what that means, where this alternative layout where the 4 panels are no longer placed on the front, but they're on the back, that would reduce the output to 25%. And I'm sure the applicant will have a little bit more to say about that in their presentation. And they did also mention that they mentioned the accessory structures on the site. And so I think that they'll probably have something to tell you about, the alternative of looking at, placing panels on the accessory structure. So my staff recommendation tonight is for a continuance, to give the applicant time to provide a more robust alternatives analysis, any other evidence that the board might identify that might be helpful to you, or if you want to give them any direction on, anything to come back with, you can do that. But my recommendation is basically that I don't think they've provided enough here to gain approval for those panels on the front. But the ones on the side would be approved by staff, essentially. With that, I will stop and answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Any questions for staff before we turn it over to the applicant?
One question was, I think I heard you say there's an alternative or building or something else that's on the property that could possibly be used.
Yeah, I'm gonna share again. So, the property, you know, has a side yard here and then a few accessory buildings in the back. And I think that there might be, I don't know if these are, you know, actual feasible alternatives. I'll let the applicant speak to that, but that's what kind of their site plan looks like.
Anyone else on the board have any questions? Okay, in that case, we'll invite the applicant up to describe your application. You'll have up to 15 minutes, though again, you don't need to use it all. If you could state your name and place of residence, please. Do we have the applicant on the call?
Looks like we may have lost them. I'm David Campbell. I work with Ion Solar. We're the company that's working to get the panels installed. I saw them here a minute ago.
Okay. Well, I don't want to take other public testimony. I don't think we have any, but I don't want to take any other public testimony without them having the opportunity to hear it, to respond to it as well.
Is it safe to ask Kelly if they're in the lobby waiting?
I don't see anyone waiting to be led into the meeting.
Grant, maybe it's just appropriate for us to move this into a continuance immediately.
I was thinking maybe, if we can table this application maybe, and we'll move on to the third application, and then if they are able to rejoin the meeting, can come back to take testimony on this application.
So go to 3 and then table 2 until 3 is complete, and if they show up.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, if they're able to rejoin.
I'm for that.
Okay. I don't know if we need do we need a motion for that, or?
Oh wait, Dave was trying to speak, I think.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
It looks like they came back, Scott and Scott, can you?
Yeah, I'm not the applicant for number 2. I'm for number 3.
You're number 3. Got it.
Okay. Okay, so
I don't know that anyone else was in the meeting. Oh, sorry, were there 12 participants earlier?
I wasn't looking close enough.
I think there were, but I think that was Brian and And Bell.
Right.
Mr.
Yeah.
Bell, so.
I don't recall seeing the name Philip, who's on the application for number 2. I don't recall seeing that person in the meeting.
I don't either, Jessica.
I don't know, David, were you representing them or?
No, I'm sorry. It appears that I was a little bit confused, and we're with Scott, representing Scott. Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, sure, no problem.
The layouts look almost identical. We looked at that one, and I assumed that I was looking at that one. Sorry about that, guys.
Sure, okay.
I do recognize, just to close the loop though, the name Matt Modisette here on the list. I think he was maybe representing this applicant.
Philip, correct, yes.
Do you, well, I'll let Chair Blythe ask any questions.
Okay, sure. Matt, are you able to, or do you want to speak on behalf of the applicant then on this application?
I can. I guess a lot of it is when it comes to the solar panel installation, the main hurdle that we're going to have to jump for a lot of these houses is when we go to submit the permits with the city, what is the city going to want to do as far as a retrofit? And basically what a retrofit is, reinforcing the trusses that hold up the attic and hold up the roof to make them strong enough to pass code. And so that's going to be probably the main hurdle if you guys decide to move forward with the positioning and the layout, and you're happy with that, is seeing what the city is going to want to do as far as the retrofits go, because they could get pretty pricey considering the age of the house and the additional weight. It's not a whole lot of weight. Each panel weighs about 44 pounds a piece. Each panel has its own microinverter tucked underneath it. And typically the way that we do the installs is we run everything through the attic, so everything is as seamless as possible. So you're not going to see a bunch of wires or conduit or things like that. You're just going to see the panels stacked nice and neatly together. Obviously, if there's room in the attic, because everything is initially mounted from the attic, and there's no additional equipment. There's a small power box, probably about the size of a small laptop. That gets mounted next to the main power box, which is probably going to be somewhere in the older houses, maybe a bedroom or things like that. As far as other structures, the city is very specific on what structures they allow to have solar on. Some garages they will allow, if that is an option. If this has a detached garage, I'm looking at the aerial view right now, and I'm not sure if the building to the northwest is a detached garage or not. It looks probably too small. Moving the panels to the northwest side would have less production. Obviously, the south side would be the best side to put the panels. Mainly, what questions or concerns do you guys have for us? As far as aesthetics or maybe maintenance or anything like that? Is there anything like that we could answer for you?
Yeah, so I guess from my perspective, speaking first, I think the one set of panels that was not the grouping above the front entrance is likely not an issue, but it's that section that was above the front entrance that is likely going to be the sticking point with the board here. So I guess, did you review that alternative installation where they were on the opposite side on that back portion of the structure, and do you know how the applicants feel about that option?
I didn't know that actually was done, but the offset does drop a little bit to it. I can talk to him and see his opinions on it. One of the reasons, you've got some exhaust vents on the northwest side, the lower, well, I guess you'd say, yeah, northwest side on both sides. And you've got some exhaust vents there. And when we talk about fire code, when it comes to solar installation, what that entails is basically when the fire department has to get on top of a roof, they have to be able to freely walk around that roof, even if it has solar panels on it. And so depending on fire code, there are a lot of areas in the roof that we can't put panels because it would eliminate the firefighters' ability to navigate that roof safely. So it's all dependent on the computer-aided design team that we have at our main office that creates these proposals. We possibly could move the south side panels, looks like towards the main entrance, to the northwest side. the production would drop significantly, because when you're looking at this, and I don't know if you guys have the same one that I do, it's color coded, obviously, because it's LiDAR technology, and it indicates what areas of the roof get a lot of sun and then what areas of the roof don't get a lot of sun. So it would obviously affect the offset on that too. Any other questions for us?
Just noticing the how much ground they have on that from the aerial view. Is a ground array even a possibility?
Ground arrays are always a possibility. The only problem whenever you do a ground mount is you're going to incur the additional cost of trenching that line. And so it's about $10,000 to do a ground mount, because we'd essentially have to trench a power line to wherever they wanted that ground mount. And then it would obviously face south facing, you know, and production would be very good because ground mounts are very efficient, which is why whenever you go out to a winery, you always see a bunch of ground mounts. But there would be a significant cost incurred by the homeowner.
Yeah. Does the power drop? I know you said there was a great source of power, but is there still a reduction based off that alternative analysis? Or
From
would
just
it be very close to what the desired output would be?
you're saying if you were to take the panels off the roof and then do a ground mount, what would the production be?
Yeah. Or did
your production would probably go up a little bit. I mean, the good thing about this house is it's got south-facing roof that has a lot of unobstructed sun, which is really good. Looking at the overview over here, there could be some shading issues from a lot of trees that would prevent some production on a ground mount. Again, we'd have to get our guys out there, because obviously with a lot of bad winters, a lot of people's trees have been removed. They've been thinned out and things like that. So that could aid in the production of the system. We'd kind of have to check that out though.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Any further questions from the board?
Without the actual owners here, I really believe we should be continuing it until the next meeting. And in advice, right now I don't look favorably to putting it right above the front entry. I think that this is such a beautiful structure. To me, it's the detail is, and how well it's been taken care of is so important. And I just don't find that, in my personal opinion, that I think it would detract enough of something that is as pretty as it is, that it would make a difference. And I would prefer to see it other mounts, other places that could be done. The delta difference it looked like between the alternate design was probably about 8% in power production. So between the two, by moving it back. But if there are other alternatives that could be done that could enable solar, I would like to see that, because I personally favor solar if it can be done and done appropriately.
Okay. So if we continue this application, we'll leave the public record open on it. Do we want to, I know, so it sounds like we would like to request additional information on the possible alternatives, including putting panels on the accessory structures and or possible ground mounts. Is there anything else that we want to ask for more information on?
Chair Blythe, I think we haven't had a chance yet for any public testimony, if there's any. So just in case, you might want to ask for that, and then you can have the board give some direction to the applicant for what to come back with.
Sorry, yeah, good point. I was under the impression we didn't have any, but are there any other public comments on this application? Okay. Hearing none.
I don't know, should we, I'd like to know what the color of the material, as opposed to the contrast between the material of the solar panels and the roof. I'll be able to match, I'll be able to get as close as possible.
You're gonna have trying to match the color. The solar panels are going to be a very, very dark black. All the solar panels that are coming out nowadays are going to be that same dark black. Some of them have a bluish tint that's kind of typically an older design of an older product, but the new ones are pretty much just going to be a very, very dark black.
Okay.
What is the dimension of a individual solar panel?
I think I have it in millimeters. David, if you've got it, would you send that over to me? Give me 1 second. I'll give you the exact dimensions here in just a second. I'm going to have to look on my phone. Hold on a second. Let me see here. Okay, let's take a peek at this. So the weight is exactly 44 pounds. The dimensions for the new 370 panels, which is what we got in last summer, are 72 inches by 39.4 inches, and they're 1.5 inches thick.
Repeat that, that's 72 by 39?
70, it's 72 and change. It's 72 by.
If you like, Matt and I, we both work with Ion Solar. We're in the same company, just different homes. We'd be happy to send the spec sheet for the Silfab 370 NX panels that are going to go, and this would be for both this home and the Dumpies as well.
Thank you.
I'm trying to see if there was a color associated with the panels, and all I'm getting is for the frame, it says anodized aluminum, and then in parentheses, it just says black. So it's not giving me any kind of specific color for it.
Okay. Very good. Are we ready for a motion to continue, or do we want to go a different direction?
A motion of continuance. I move for a continuance.
And that would be continued to a date certain of February 22nd.
I'll second that.
Board Member Ferry.
Aye.
Board Member Belknap.
Aye.
Board Member Edgar. Board Member Stobie. Am I hearing an aye from Board Member Stobie?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Is that
Was it
an
my turn?
aye? Is that
Yeah,
yes?
it's an aye. Or
Oh,
yes,
okay,
or
and
both.
Chair Blythe.
Aye. All right, so the application is continued until a date certain of February 22nd. All right. We'll now move on to the third and final application in the public hearing portion of the agenda tonight and open the record for Oregon City file number GLUA 2165 and HR 2127, historic review for solar panel installation on street facing roof planes on a designated structure in the Mclaughlin Conservation District at 503 Madison Street, the Arthur and Daisy Farr House. I'll again ask each historic review board member if they have had any ex parte contacts, conflicts of interest, bias, or any other statement to declare, and if they visit the site and have any material information to note. Board member Stobie.
I have visited the site. I have no conflicts, no ex parte contact, and upon my visit, did not find any added information to put forward.
Thank you. Board member Egger.
I drove by the site. I have no conflicts of interest in any way.
Thank you. Board member Ferry.
I've visited the site. I have no conflicts of interest and I have had no ex parte contact.
Thank you. Board member Belknap.
I visited the site. I have had no contact and have no conflicts.
And I've also driven by the site and have no conflicts or ex parte contacts to declare. Does anyone in the audience wish to question any of the historic review board members about these disclosures? Okay, hearing none, we will turn it back over to staff again for the staff report.
Thank you. Okay, this is another solar panel application. Just a couple of blocks away from the last one. So 503 Madison Street, this is the Arthur and Daisy Farr House. Also a corner lot, kind of southeast facing. And this home is a bungalow in the Mclaughlin district. It's been referred to as an airplane style bungalow because it has the second level, little pop-up. And it's built in 1923, also in very good condition. I won't repeat the Hrb policy for solar, except to say that these are street-facing roof planes that didn't quite meet the policy, and so that's why it's coming to you for case-by-case review. And we talked about the comprehensive plan policies already as well. So the placement of these panels, there are two that are shown on the lower porch roof on the front facing Madison Street, and then the remainder of the panels would be on the upper roof, which faces 5th Street. And I will add that this aerial photo shows a very light colored roof, and the applicant has since replaced their roof. So this is a more recent photo that shows the darker roof color, so the panels will blend in better than what is kind of shown in this aerial image. So you can see the street view from 5th Street, where we can see that roof plane. And then this is the view from across the street on Madison, where you can see the front porch roof. Once again, the guidance from the National Park Service does talk about a low pitch slope roof and how the panels have relatively little impact on the character because of they're not as visible with that low pitch. It says if the roof had been a more prominent feature of the property, this installation may not have been appropriate. So this was a decent example for me of a similarly kind of pitched roof. The applicant did provide an alternatives analysis here showing the panels on the rear roof of the structure and what the production would be. So it's a little bit, the data is a little bit different from the other alternatives analysis, but you can see the estimated production here is 4,700 kilowatt hours. And with the alternative, it's just 2,000 kilowatt hours. So a significant difference, a drop in the production for this alternative. So my findings and recommendation to you for this one is, with this bungalow design, the major design elements of the home that kind of give it its unique character are, the shape of the home being very unique, and the broad, low slung front porch with the big columns, and just kind of the overall shape of the house. And the panels being placed on the roof won't directly affect those elements. And because the roof, it has such a low pitch, and then because that second level is pretty high up above the street, the panels won't be very prominently visible, as they would have been if the roof was sloped more or lower to the ground. And of course, as we typically, finding that we typically see with solar is that, the roof itself of the structure is not a historic element. It's a replacement, composition shingle roof that's a replacement of whatever was on there originally. And the panels are designed to be removed in the future without causing irreparable damage to the structure. So for these reasons, I am recommending approval for this installation with some conditions, that the panels don't project more than 5 inches, that the ground or wall mounted equipment not obscure any architectural features, and that the panel frames should be black with no unfinished or shiny metal frames. And I believe that all of these are part of the proposal. I just don't think that there's quite enough information for us to confirm that this is the case. And so there are conditions of approval that I'll need to see documentation for later. And that's it. If you have any questions.
Great, thanks, Kelly. Any questions from the board before we turn it over to the applicant?
In the alternate plan showing the panels along the deal, could you combine the alternate plan and the primary plan, but eliminate just those few solar panels that are on the porch roof? So as you could dramatically expand the number of panels, solar panels, by just combining the two. Does that change costs or some delta that should not occur?
I think that would be a good question maybe for the applicant to answer in their presentation when the time comes.
Yeah, agreed. That's we'll ask the applicant to address that. Okay, so again, just on process, we'll have up to 15 minutes for the applicant, and then up to 5 minutes or 3 minutes for organizations or individuals. So we'll go ahead and invite the applicant to describe your application. If you can state your name and place of residence, and then just preemptively, if you could maybe address, I think, the question that Paul had and likely the rest of the board, which is about that alternative, and if there's sort of a option to combine those two or do a bit of a mix and match there.
Thank you. My name's Scott Dunphy, and this is my wife Suzanne, and we live at 503 Madison Street. And David Campbell is here with us from Ion Solar. Thank you, David. And he would be the one to answer Paul's question. David, if you understand the question, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, absolutely. When we put a proposal together for a home, as Matt had mentioned earlier, we're looking at where we can place panels for optimal efficiency. I mean, at the end of the day, we want to get the most sun as possible. We want to do it in a cost-efficient way to the homeowner. Absolutely, there's always the potential to add more panels, but you know, one thing that we really pride ourselves on at ION, and this is part of the reason why we're so successful, is that we don't push big systems. And so, you know, when we worked through this with the Dumpies originally, we wanted to put together the most cost-efficient system as possible. I guess in a roundabout way, what I'm saying is, yeah, it is feasible that we could put panels there as well. The production is not nearly as good. As you could see, it dropped by half. And so if we were to add that plus the alpha, I mean, you would get a little bit more production, but in my opinion, that would be a waste of the homeowner's money trying to grab that little bit of sunlight for the cost of however many panels go on that other plane. So I would advise against it. Just for the cost benefit analysis and, you know, thinking of the homeowner, and what we're trying to do is save them money on electricity, not necessarily put a huge expensive system on their home.
Does that answer the question? Or does anybody want to ask David a question? Well, I just wanted to say we've owned this home, or my wife and I only got married about 3 years ago. Well, 3 years ago today. Today is our wedding anniversary, and this is how we're spending it. So yeah, we're going out tomorrow night. Anyway, but I bought this home in 1999. So the question of, you know, maintaining its historical integrity is very important to me. I admire and applaud the work of the Historic Review Board. I intentionally bought the historic home and have tried to be a good steward of it, and I think I have been. So, you know, should solar be part of the historic district? That's a question I've wrestled with off and on, but I think we are to the place where we have to balance the historical concerns with the environmental concerns, and you know, look at the best way to do that. I know there was an anonymous neighbor who made an objection to the idea of solar in the historic district. I wish that neighbor had not been anonymous, because I would love to engage them in conversation. That you know, unless we find a way to balance these two concerns, it doesn't matter if we have a historic district or not, because, you know, we're not going to have a planet. and so I am fully committed to solar here and finding a way to make this work. I don't think you know, their objection was that they wanted to see us preserve the style and architectural structure of the home. And, you know, given the report from Kelly, you know, I don't think we're violating the architectural structure or the style of the home. I think we're really finding that balance that is the way to go here. And then just to reiterate, as Kelly pointed out, there is a different roof material. The photos that even show the newer roof, to the degree that, you know, photos are accurate, it doesn't even show how dark that roof really is. I don't think it's a really, really dark brown with black notes in it as well. And I think it's going to blend beautifully with the panels and not really be an issue there. And I guess that's all I want to say, unless I can answer any questions, or you might have more questions David can answer.
Okay. Well, first, I just want to say thank you for your stewardship of the home, and appreciate all your you know, hard work and maintenance on that. And bungalows, particularly airplane bungalows, are not very common, and so it's nice to see you know, an example like yours that's in great condition. And is an asset to the neighborhood. I think my question is likely going to be about the smaller array. I think the, of course, we'll get the opinions of the other board members too, but my initial impression is that the array, the large portion of the array that's on the second floor, pretty much, meets our policies as is and isn't on that primary facade facing the front entrance. The small array of the 2 panels is probably the one face of the roof that you would see walking up kind of like the primary sidewalk to the front door. So that's the one that if there was a secondary location for those 2 panels that, I would be interested in seeing that. I know there's of course, pros and cons to weigh that in, but that would be my initial reaction, that I'd definitely be interested if there's a possibility just to move those 2 individually somewhere else.
I would like to echo Grant's statements 100%. I'm very, that's consistent with my only thoughts that I've had. Is there a way that we could get more panels up on that upper roof? A couple more panels up there, or so, maybe extending it out some way. But the only objection that I have is with the 2 that are sitting on the porch roof. That's it.
I don't know, David, if you are able to answer that, or if that needs more, analysis with your actual software tools and all that.
Yeah, I'd love to address that. I'm looking at the LiDAR right now of their home, and it's quite obvious. And I don't know if you guys have those images or not. I mean, really, the only 2 planes that are, in my opinion, a viable option would be the 2 that they're on right now. And so, if we were to pull those 2 panels out of the array, and again, we follow fire code very, very, so we don't cut any corners with these installations, and we want to make sure that it passes final inspection. And so I don't see that as it stands right now, we would be able to add 2 more to the that upper plane of the roof. I would obviously be happy to revisit it, and we're going to do the best that we can do to be as compliant as possible. As Scott had mentioned, you're dealing with not quite as steep of a pitch as that other house that we just talked about. So the reality of actually seeing these panels and being like, whoa, I see solar panels up there, they most likely won't even be part of your visual when you look at it, just because the way the house is built, you're going to be looking at all the beauty and the architecture that's down below. The roof is very plain, and there isn't a lot of ornamental up near the roof. There's really not much there other than just that dark colored roof. I would say, we'd be happy to do it. We want to comply, we want to push it, but at the same time, we also want to get this installed in a timely manner. And, if this is going to delay it another month to try to see if we can fit a panel here or there, we've done a pretty thorough analysis of this. And like I said, this is, our engineers came up with this design after a complete site survey, after evaluating the house entirely. And at this point, we would have to revisit it, and that would probably mean we need to come out and do another site survey, and it would prolong the process for the dump fees to get this done. But we want to do it the right way. And so we will comply with whatever requests you guys put forward. But as it stands right now, in my opinion, this is as good as he's going to get as far as production goes. And I'm highly doubtful that we will be able to squeeze any more panels on that upper portion of the roof. To answer a question that was posed a minute ago, just to be clear, the panels themselves are matte black. All of the hardware is black. There are absolutely no shiny metal items at all. Nothing is visible. There is no piping or conduit or anything that comes up on that roof. Everything is done in the most aesthetically pleasing way. And again, this is some of the trademarks of our company. And I'm sure this was one of the reasons why the Dunphys chose us over some of the other solar companies that were out there. So hope that, does that answer your questions?
Can I just add, Grant, I think it was you who said something about what you would see as you walked up the walk to the front door. Did you actually do that when you visited that property?
I drove past, but I didn't walk up.
Okay, because there really is, I walked all around my house, because of my passion for the historic district to try to, see all this. And the only place from where I can actually see where those panels are going to be is if I'm across the street. That if I'm standing on the sidewalk in front of the house, let alone walking up the walkway to the front door, I can't see in that place where those panels are going to be. Now, you'd have to do that for yourself if you're not willing to take my word for it. But that's what I can say.
I did walk around your yard actually earlier today a little bit, like on the sidewalk. So I hope I didn't creep you out a little bit. But
I was at work, so I
spent
didn't see it.
I spent quite a bit of time actually looking at it. And you're right. It is really difficult to see your roof, the top of your roof from the sidewalk, from anywhere close by. And if you go on the other side, you have those nice big trees, like you can't even see your roof from the other side. I would be like, I have no problem with those two solar panels. I live in a historic home. I also have solar on my home. But based on like, there'd be such minimal visual impact, if any, like I would have no problem with those panels there.
Okay.
Thanks for at least verifying my observations. You all still have to decide. Yeah,
that was my impression too. So
any other questions for the applicant before we take any other testimony?
Just a quick question for David, if he has the data. What percentage of the total array, I think it was 4,700 kilowatt per year, what percentage of those two make up that, of that 4,700? Like if you were to eliminate those two,
I mean, you're looking, yeah, it's a total of, I believe, 11 panels. So, taking two out of that, you're looking at least 1,000 kilowatt hours dropped.
Okay.
In production. So it is significant because that is 20% of total production.
And even compared to the alternative, which was, I believe, 65% or 62% or so.
Yeah,
Drop
utilizing that other plane. I mean, the panels would still, if we put them up there, and again, there is the element Matt mentioned of making sure that the structure of the home is viable for solar, suitable for solar. Yeah. So going into that other plane, we may find out that, hey, this needs a massive structural reinforcement, which then we're talking about thousands of dollars in that project alone. So is it worth it to move those two panels if they're already not visible, and we're moving them to a place that's even less visible, but it's costing an extra $3,000 and he's losing 1,000 kilowatt hours of power over the year? I would move to say, hey, I've done a lot of these homes. I've never been in one of these hearings before, but this seems like a very straightforward proposition and project, and I would move to try to pass it this way. We would be happy to do further analysis and come back to you if we do find results, and we'll do that on our own time, at no fee to the Dunphys, obviously. But my my suggestion would be to try to get this passed now so we can continue in the permitting process. This is a big project that takes several months, and I just don't want it to creep up into summer and he still not have solar and not turned on. So, you know, in being an advocate for the dump fees, I would really push to get this passed as it is, and we would be happy to do all of the homework and do an extra analysis. And if needs be, we'll send out another site survey team and really take a deep look at, is that a viable option? And if it is, we'll be very forthright and we'll provide, I mean, you know, I would be happy to provide the results to that at a later date. But again, you know, I would push to try to get this approved today
Sure.
if possible.
No, I'm just curious of what the reduction in output would be if those two were eliminated. Instead of just moving and adding some extra costs.
Yeah, if you were just,
But
absolutely. If you were just to eliminate it, again, you know, you're taking 2 out of 11, which is about 20%.
Yeah.
Both of those, according to our LiDAR readings, the production would be very similar per panel. And so you have to look at about a 20% reduction on 4,750 kilowatt hours over the year.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
I would like to take David up on your review, secondary review. If you were to do that, then I would be more inclined to say, okay, let's go ahead, and it's just a second look, because if in fact they could, if there was a way that it's economical price performance and it could eliminate those two, that would be the only thing that I would come back and say I would have a problem with. If it makes sense, if it doesn't make sense, I'm inclined to go ahead and move ahead with it and just start the process.
Thanks, Paul. We still do need to take any other public comments. Board Member Ferry, did you have any questions for the applicant?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Any last go around for the applicant, and we'll go to other public comments. Okay. Do we have any other public comments on this application? Guess not. Okay, I thought that was maybe Teresa. That's for. Yeah. Okay. Well, okay, hearing none. Are we ready to close the public record and consider the application tonight, or do we need additional information, do we think, to make a decision?
I think we can make a decision, but that's just me.
I think we can.
Agreed.
Okay. Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public record for this application and move into board deliberations. We'll go ahead and start with Board Member Ferry. Want to share your thoughts?
Yeah, given the low roof pitch and the National Park Service guidelines or guidance that they've provided, also listening to everyone talk tonight, I personally don't have any problem with those two little panels on top of the porch roof. I think that it's really important to weigh sort of environmental concerns against historic district policies. And I think that it doesn't intrude upon the house enough to not, take advantage of those extra kilowatt output that you would get from installing solar, which is, a big expense. And we have to consider that it puts a stress on a homeowner, and, they should get the best output that they can from their investment. So I personally don't have a problem with those two little panels on the porch roof.
Okay. Board Member Stubbe?
I agree with Sabrina. if there was a lot, if the output reduction was a lot less and the cost was going to be mitigated through just eliminating those 2 panels, I probably would have engaged David more. But the a 22% reduction in output is significant, especially when you're trying to go solar and help our environment. It is a low pitch roof. I don't, with the materials that both David and I think it was Matt we're talking about on the other application, I think I'm in favor. I don't see, there's no reason to hold this up.
Board Member Edgar.
I agree that the pitch, the low pitch of the roof is makes it difficult for somebody to find objection or see it as not compatible. But if anything, the fact that David will take a look and see if there's a way, anything that it can do, I would love to see the 2 panels removed, but it's not going to kill the deal with me. That's the way I see it. I want to thank you. I felt like this was a good evaluation for all of us to look at it, and for the Dunphys, thank you for what you're doing and being responsible. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Paul. Board Member Belknap.
Yeah, I'm also very excited and happy to see solar coming into this neighborhood more and more. I think, as many of my fellow board members have also said, we have to weigh the benefits of these new technologies with celebrating our old architecture and being good stewards to these homes. And I think you're doing just that. I think that this is a really especially with the new black on black panels versus the older blue and more shiny options. I think this is a really elegant solution and is not intrusive. And I would love to see more installations like this. So thank you.
Very good. And I would agree with the rest of the board that I like the application, and I'm happy to see the solar going in. I think, my one slight hesitation is those 2 panels. Every application is separate and unique, but I also do, want to try to apply our logic and rationale in a consistent way. And, we have denied other applications for mounting panels kind of directly around the front entrance facades. However, I think the mitigating factors, that we've discussed, I think we can note as findings in this case to prove that. So for Kelly specifically, what I heard as findings were that as this is a bungalow with a low pitch roof, it makes the panels less conspicuous. That this roof face is secondary to the front entrance gable that's more centered over the front entrance, so it's off to the side and less conspicuous there. And then also that the landscaping and trees block the direct view of this roof face from the street and some of the surrounding viewpoints. Was there anything else that we noted as findings that should be captured?
I think I've got those points that you made, along with the points of the other board members, that it's important to weigh the environmental concerns against historic issues, and that the black on black panels are not intrusive in their appearance.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Kelly. I think we're ready for a motion then.
Well, I'll move again. I'll move for approval as with conditions of approval as stated by Kelly.
I'll second that.
Sorry, Board Member Ferry,
Aye.
Board Member Belknap,
Aye.
Board Member Stobie,
Aye.
Board Member Edgar,
Aye.
and Chair Blythe.
Aye. Motion carries and the application is approved. Good luck with your project, and we'll be happy to see it going in, and I'll be sure to drive by and check out the new roof and the panels and all that.
Yes.
Thank you all very much. And again, thank you for your meticulous attention and work to each proposal that comes before you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
All right, so that concludes the public hearing portion of the agenda tonight. Now we'll move on to, we've got 2 items under other business. So the first will be electing a chair and vice chair for the 2022 year. I don't know, Kelly, did you have any comments on that?
Sure. Thank you. It's been great to work with Grant as chair. And we haven't had a vice chair, I think, for a while. Now the board, you don't have to have a vice chair. I think the duties of the vice chair would just be to serve as chair in a meeting if the chair can't make it. And then it's what we just experienced in December was that the chair and the vice chair participated in the interviews for new members. So that would be the other role of the vice chair. I think that's all I have related to the elections. But, thank you, Grant.
I would move to nominate Grant for renomination as the chair.
I would second that. If you wanted to.
Does the
continue.
nominee have any objection?
Before we,
No objections. I'm happy to have done it and happy to continue to do it. This would be my last year on the board, as this will be my 6th year, which is the final year of my 2nd term. So I'll be, I don't know, not aged out or whatever, but whatever
You've got a little bit of gray hair
for
than
no
last
longer
year.
eligible. But I do think it would be good to have a co-chair, as depending on how COVID goes this year, then I might, need to start traveling for business again a little bit more, and potentially have a few more conflicts that might pop up and things like that. So to make sure that we have, alternatives that are ready to, that have access to the script and the agenda items and all that, in case there are any times I'm not able to make it.
That's a good idea.
Well, I'd love to throw my name in the hat for vice chair. I don't know if anybody else is interested.
Yeah, I would second that.
Yeah, if it were a different year, I would put my name in. Daughter's 11, not 12 years old, and she's getting into sports and dances. So my evenings are quite busy. So I would support Sabrina.
I appreciate that. I think we're all busy and at least trying to make a difference. And if somebody steps up, thank you.
I'm good with Sabrina being vice chair.
But know that if Grant and Sabrina, if there is a month that a third person needs to step up, I would be happy to do so.
I'll email out the current script and all that materials to everybody that I use, just so everyone has it for reference anyway.
Good.
Yeah. We got your back, Grant.
Good.
Would you all like to take a vote on chair and vice chair together, or is
for these
I think you
positions.
can. I'll second just because that's what we've done tonight.
okay? I'll call a vote then. Board Member Belknap,
Aye.
Board Member Ferry,
Aye.
Board Member Egger,
Aye.
Board Member Stobie,
Aye.
and continuing Chair Blythe.
Aye. And thanks for the vote of confidence, I guess, or the punishment. I don't know.
Thank you for your work.
Okay. The next and final item here is 2021 HRB accomplishments. And so I think Kelly, you had attached the summary, the commission, or I guess it was a staff report or the commission report with the list. Are we just providing any amendments or comments on that, or?
Well, if I missed anything, please tell me, and I can add it, but I don't know that we've actually shared, I don't know that I've put this on an agenda before, but usually the chair will go to the city commission to briefly share the accomplishments each year. So that's why this kind of summary has been prepared over the years. But I thought it was notable that last year you reviewed 20 applications, some of them being very complicated versus just 10 the year before and 8 the year before that. So you were very busy last year, especially given that, one of those applications was the Kanema Cottages modification of 5 buildings in one application. And then, you did more than just review 20 applications too. There was a lot of other work on your plate. This sometimes can dovetail into a bit of a work plan conversation. So if there's anything that you see on here that you want to talk about, or you have ideas of other things that you'd like to try to accomplish in 2022, I'm happy to talk about that.
I just had a question about the compatible change stuff that we had been talking about. We met with the Mclaughlin Neighborhood Association, and we got a lot of really good feedback, but then we haven't really talked about it since. And so I kind of wondered what was going on with that.
Yeah, staff shortages is mostly what's going on with that. We've been shorthanded since late summer, and so now we've got an interim director and a new planning manager, but we're still only at 3 planners in the whole department. So we're still kind of short-staffed. The other part of that is that we were trying to strategize or trying to plan for when we could present or go through the actual code amendment process associated with compatible change. And the city is, as I think we talked about a few meetings ago, we're updating our code to add missing middle housing opportunities. And we're planning, the schedule for that has us adopting those code amendments in June of this year. And we had been thinking through the fall that we might be able to combine the compatible change amendments with those other housing related code amendments into one package. And it's looking like that we might not combine them just to keep the housing code amendments uncomplicated and simple. So because those have a very strict deadline. So we're probably going to keep it separate, and we don't really have a real deadline, but we want to get this done. So I think that we are planning on bringing it back to one last work session, probably with the board this spring, if we have capacity. But I think it also kind of, the whole, how busy we were in 2021 with 20 different applications, I think that's part of it as well, right? Where you all had 3 public hearings almost on every meeting agenda, and having a bunch of work sessions on top of that would have been a lot for the board. So a few different reasons, but we haven't dropped it, and it's still going to move forward.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
I just have a quick question. Do you know if the Mclaughlin Neighborhood Association tapes their meetings? And if so, we can watch them?
I don't know.
It's been so long since we had that meeting. I'd love to go back and just rewatch their comments, but if possible. But that's great to know. Thank you.
I can ask them if they have a recording. I also took pretty good notes from that meeting that I have, with specific names, like, Wendy said this. So I think I have at least a pretty good notes on what was said. But yeah, that I think we can maybe look towards compatible change in a couple of months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had no idea that our schedule last year was any busier than any year before. I didn't realize it was so heavy.
Would like to find out if the city attorney has conferred with Jim Nacita, who is the attorney at the Luba appeal of the cottage homes, where Luba came back and said our building guidelines were mandatory. And I would like to have that validation, because I remember directly that Jim Nacita, an attorney, telling us that Luba made our building guidelines now mandatory. And if that is in fact the case, it does create a secondary and important evaluation degree in our decision making.
That actually dovetails into something I was going to ask the board, is a legal training with attorney Carrie Richter. We usually do that at the beginning of every year, and that's something that we are thinking about potentially combining that training with the Planning Commission's legal training as both quasi-judicial bodies. And if you all are available for that, we could schedule it for February 14th, which is a Planning Commission meeting night, and the board, Hrb members could attend via Zoom or in person, however you'd like. So and I think we can ask Carrie to address that, Paul, and if not then maybe on a one-on-one with you. Yeah, so if anyone has an objection to the 14th, let me know. Otherwise, we'll schedule that.
I would prefer if there was a one-on-one. I'm not an attorney. I think Jim Nacita was a litigating attorney, and Carrie should talk to him direct.
I see.
Okay.
I'm
You have
okay
any-
with it, but I just want to point out that February 14th is Valentine's Day, in case anybody has any plans. Okay, like I think that'll be okay with my schedule, but just checking, make sure everybody else.
A smart young lady.
Yeah, that's
don't
usually the
wanna
night that
mess
the
up
historic
anybody's
review board
wonderful
turns into
dates
the
or-
historic romance board. So-
Right?
Hey, Jessica, just out of curiosity, any relation to a certain local attorney?
Yes, that's my dad.
I figured so. Okay.
Yeah, so I've been around even before I owned a home in this neighborhood. I've been around this neighborhood for a long time.
Right on.
Gotcha. Okay. Any other communications or business?
So I do have communications if we're finished talking about the 2021 accomplishments.
You're cutting out.
Sorry, I do have another communications if we're finished with the last item.
Yes.
I think so. The only thing I guess would be, only sort of related, but I apologize. I had a late work conflict with the commission work session. Was there anything that came out of that needs to be addressed, or actions, or?
I guess the two takeaways that I had from it were that we are going to institute a slightly more formalized pre-application meeting requirement for historic review applicants. So right now our code does not, we require pre-application meetings for lots of different land use applications, but historic review is not one of them. But what we can do is strongly encourage a free formalized meeting with staff before someone submits a historic review application, and that can potentially help applicants, put together a better application, more complete, more thorough. And then also just kind of better understand the process before they start it. And I tend to do that on an informal basis. That's kind of been our practice, but we can try to formalize that as much as we can without changing our code or charging money, for that, charging a fee. So we will be instituting that right away. And then I think there was it sounded like there was some desire to revisit the design guidelines as a 2023, like the next biennium. So the commission would potentially budget for a process to update the design guidelines. But we don't have that in our budget cycle right now, so we'd have to wait until next time. But there were other folks there, so if I missed anything.
Yeah, I wasn't able to get the link, but I was able to watch it on YouTube. And I know, Kelly, you and I did talk. And, yeah.
I think you covered it.
What's that?
I think that Kelly covered it.
Really, I don't mean to take up more time because I know it's getting late, but could you explain to me the 120-day? Maybe you could just send me, I mean, it doesn't matter, but I just don't quite understand. I did not quite understand what that point was.
Oh, sure. And I think Carrie will talk more about it when we do the legal training.
Okay.
But once the city deems a land use application complete, that starts the 120-day clock, and we have to have a decision by then, or else the applicant essentially gets to, they're approved, right? Whatever they've requested. I mean, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but it can be considered approved as proposed, unless we make that decision. And we have to account for appeals within that 120 days. So that really puts some pressure on the board to, especially if you have a continuance where, if the deadline is still, 120 days and you have a couple of continuances, then by the time you make that decision, then there's not much time to handle any appeal hearings if the application is appealed. And we often, ask the applicant to extend our deadline beyond 120 days in order to accommodate those continuances, but the applicant does not have to do that. So they're not required to extend that deadline. So that's kind of what that was about. And Carrie can maybe talk a little bit more about that in February.
Okay, no, that's a good explanation. Thank you.
So the other communication item that I had, if that's okay, Grant.
Yeah.
Every 2 years, we have the opportunity to apply for a certified local government grant from the state Historic Preservation Office. So Oregon City's one of the, several certified local governments in Oregon that, has a preservation program that meets the state requirements. And so we are guaranteed funding. And all we have to do is, put together some projects or proposals of how we were going to use that funding and turn that in. So this year that is due at the end of next month. And, every 2 years we kind of have different projects that we take on. We tend to include some money for public outreach. So like creating those new homeowner packets and printing and mailing those has been funded through this grant. We do preservation month activities like, tours or lectures or workshops, like a window repair workshop, for example. So the funding can be used for that. It can also be used for making improvements to National Register listed properties, or to writing a National Register nomination for a property. And that's not something that I think we've done for a while, if ever, with that grant funding, but it's got a lot of different uses. So I just wanted to put out there for the board, if anyone has any ideas or requests, that you can get in touch with me. And I will be, kind of preparing that and meeting with other city departments and other heritage groups in the next few weeks to see, what they have coming down the line and if there are some opportunities to partner up. So just, reach out and let me know, and I'll see what I can do. And then in February, at your February meeting, I will kind of bring you the list of projects that we're going to be including in our request this year. And, you don't necessarily have to approve that, but I can let you know about it. And the great thing is, if things change, we can always revise our grant projects with the state. They're really flexible about that. So this is going to be our best guess as to how we're going to spend that money in the next 18 months. But we can always change it, as we had to do with when the pandemic began and all of our great plans for all sorts of activities and programs kind of went out the window. So just email or call me after, anytime in the next couple of weeks if you have anything.
Kelly, what's the balance of funds in the preservation grant?
So for this fiscal year, we have only awarded like $1,700. I think it's $1,750, and it was one grantee that has been awarded. Like, we've paid them $1,000, and then they get more. They get the rest of it if it isn't used by someone else. Right. So we haven't had any other requests. I had someone that was going to come in with one, but they had their window repair scheduled and they didn't want to wait, because it's hard to schedule contractors these days. So they didn't want to wait for the meeting to get the board to approve it. So they went ahead and just got the work done. So, unfortunately our program isn't perfect for everybody's project. And, it might be time to talk about making revisions to the program to accommodate, different things. So it's kind of been the same for a really long time. But yeah, we do have funding left. And so please let folks know about it.
I've been promoting that the Chamber of Commerce. It's in our weekly e-blast. And then I talk about it at our weekly networking. So hopefully we get some applications in.
Yeah.
Understanding how it works, I still get the question of, well, how much is in the pool? Well,
yeah. So we have, so there's $5,000 every fiscal year. So we've got 3,000 plus left.
Okay, I just tell people, let me know when you submit the application and I'll tell you how much you have. So trying to generate those applications, it's what I'm trying to do. But thank you.
If I ever had a request about something, would be how to provide greater outreach to people with historic properties, to where this question of compatibility is, it needs to have a discussion, because there's a lot of opinions and a lot of misinterpretations. And somehow I think that over a period, if we could have open dialogue, create a place or time where we go into Mclaughlin district and we publicize it, or we go into the Kanema area, and but where it is 90% on education and dialogue. And I think that that in the long term will help us in what we try to do.
That reminds me, another use of the funding can be for training. So if there are conferences or anything like that that you'd like to attend as a board member, the grant funding can pay for your registration fees and like hotel, well, if it's in person, like travel costs, right?
Thank you.
You have anything else in any other communications?
I do not.
Has everyone been able to get or maintain their access to their OR City email accounts? I found that mine was reset and had to go through that process, but the IT was pretty helpful to do that.
So if you don't remember your password, you should be able to go into, I think it's Office 365, like Office 365 website, and change your password. And if that doesn't work, then just let me know and I'll put you in touch with IT. Oh, Aquila Hrb, our new interim director, is here with the question.
Hi, I just wanted to pop in and introduce myself and say hello, since I feel like I've been lurking in the background. I haven't had a chance to attend an HRB meeting yet. So anyway, I just wanted to listen in and take this opportunity to introduce myself. So thanks.
Thank you. And pleasure to meet you.
Likewise.
And I apologize for not introducing you, but now I have the chance to also introduce Teresa Montalvo, who's our new planning manager.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, good evening. Nice to meet each of you. And yeah, this is my first opportunity to sit in and observe a board meeting, and look forward to working with you in the future.
Nice to meet you. Okay. Any other business? Okay, then we can go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 9:09 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks all. Good night.